Thank you for finding us again. Another edition of No Stoplights. I want to thank our sponsors, as I always do, as a priority and a necessity. I'll begin this sponsor list with one of our sponsors, McLeod Health. There's a reason I named them first. Also, Marion University, Carolina Bank, Micky Victor's, Marlboro MPD Electric Co-op, McCall Farms, Pepsi Florence, PLC Commercial Real Estate. We've made a pledge to ourselves, despite what the marketplace may want me to do. I'm not going to talk as much politics on the podcast as we do on the bombastic early morning radio show. I want to be more community centric. I want to talk about issues, about our community personalities. We've taken the last 4 or 5 podcasts and devoted a lot of effort and energy to our local business community. We've done one with Gray Rains, and we've done one with the Swinks out at McCall Farms. When I was on county council back I got elected in 2004, served until 2010. I want to be 2010. That'd be 10. 6 years, term and a half. As we recruited industry, one of the major questions was obviously taxes, dependable energy, the sort of workforce you can provide if indeed we decide to locate here. Another was healthcare, and that's where we put a big old check in the box. Some of the others, we were a bit marginal. Can you provide this many employees to do this kind of job? Yeah, we're going to put a check, but we'll put it in pencil. When someone questioned our ability in the healthcare field, we went on and on and on about how proud we were of the ever-expanding campus out at McLeod Health. And at the time, I don't know if it's true or not today, but at the time, they were the largest employer in our county. I think that's still the case, but they were quite the economic ally in recruiting industry and business here. If you're sick, if you're having health issues, obviously not having to go to a land far, far away to receive world-class health care is a big deal. So when we began, the podcast endeavor and trying to partner with local entities and enterprises that we felt were important to our community, McLeod was obviously at the top of that list. We've had Donna Isgett, the CEO, on our podcast. We're trying to do about 1 a quarter exclusively with McLeod, because they're so important to the region. It's such a big part, not just of our healthcare assets, but our economic, our employment, what am I trying to say here? The compounding effect of income and salary and how beneficial they've been to our community. And we've had with us 2 guests today. I want to make sure I know these ladies, but I want to make sure I get their titles correct. Octavia Williams-Blake is the Senior Vice President, Chief Human Resource Officer for McLeod Health, and Charity Gerald is the Director of Recruiting and Workforce Development for McLeod Health. Hello, ladies. How are you?
Thank you.
And I apologize for that monologue to begin with, but I want to make sure our viewers and listeners understand how important McLeod is. Before we get to workforce, which is what we're exclusively going to talk about today, as an employee of McLeod, Octavia, you've been there how long?
22 years.
22 years. Great place to work.
Fantastic place to work. And when I came to McLeod 22 years ago, we had about 3,500 employees. Today, we have over 10,000 employees, but 15,000 who work at our facility. So when you include our employees, plus our students, volunteers, contract workers, 15,000 in our region that we serve. It's
literally a town within itself.
Yes.
I mean,
we're going to talk about some of that today.
and let's do. Charity, you've been there how long?
I started in 2004, 20 years ago with McLeod.
And both of you were homegrown ladies, is that fair to say, or did you come from somewhere other than?
Homegrown here. I'm from South Florence High School is where I graduated, and I was born and raised in Effingham, South Carolina.
Okay.
And I was born and raised in Effingham, South Carolina also.
Well, the last two to sit in those chairs were Henry and Marion Swink of McCall Farms in Effingham, South Carolina. We could talk women's basketball, but we'd be here all night if we did that. We've already kind of delved into that a little bit. So I want to start with a question. And it'll lead to other places, but we're going to talk about workforce. Hospitals know better than the people who inhabit that medical facility. You guys are in charge, or you ladies are in charge of making sure we're developing the right kind of workforce. But Octavia, I'll start with you if you don't mind. Is it fair to say that as affected as the majority of our lives were pre and post-COVID, healthcare was probably as impacted as any sector of our economy you could ever imagine?
I would say 10 times worse. Healthcare was impacted because not only were we taking care of the patients who were diagnosed with COVID, but we also had the challenges of the workforce that many other industries had. But it was compounded because we needed people to take care of patients, but yet some of those employees were sick themselves with the disease. We also found, as many people have heard, travel nursing increased during that time as other regions of the country were impacted heavily and started paying higher wages. And so employees saw it as an opportunity to travel and make make more money than they, could possibly make in, a couple of weeks time or a couple of years in some cases. And so we had the compounding effect of high vacancy rates. And I think in healthcare, what was probably worse than a lot of industries because we couldn't just shut down. We had patients to take care of.
Y'all were the essentials of all essentials,
Exactly.
To be honest with you. Charity, is it fair to say that in your 20 years, it's kind of pre-COVID, and now we live in this new post-COVID era?
Yes, it's living in COVID. We've learned how to live with COVID. It's now endemic, and so we've pivoted and moved and adjusted in the way that we needed to with COVID being around us all the time.
And I'll stay here with you, Charity, if you don't mind. So as spectacular as the buildings are, as excited as I was on county council to promote McLeod Health, it's still no better than the people.
Absolutely.
And people have shelf lives of employment.
Absolutely.
You always got to be thinking about, talking about how many employees, Octavia, again?
10,000.
10,000.
Yes.
And there's some nearing the end of their work life. You got to replace those. For a long, long, long time, it appeared to me that the majority of corporations, businesses, were looking for this kind of one-way road of getting a 4-year degree. And that's changed a lot. There are a multitude of ways people can prepare for a career in healthcare. Are we adequately prepared in growing the workforce? Are the high schools on board, secondary schools, are the universities and tech colleges?
I think post-COVID, we've had to pivot and decide how we're gonna attack the workforce. We are helping and partnering with the schools and the high schools and saying, hey, we need to work together. We need to figure out a way how we grow our own. Those 4-year degrees, it's not the way of the future. It's the technical degrees. It's those people who are hands-on and able to do the work and come and do on-the-job training. We're reverting to where we used to be, with apprenticeships and hands-on training and going into the job knowing nothing and having a mentor and being taught from the start. It's not about the books. It's about the action.
So, Octavia, has that been a major adjustment in your world? Once again, when I was younger, kids were kind of directed toward 4-year degrees. If you didn't get a 4-year degree, I hate to say this, but it was a little bit indignified. You were not quite, or didn't feel quite as worthy. That seems to be changing. And I'm not saying we don't need 4-year colleges. We absolutely need. We're on the campus now, Francis Marion University, in a podcast studio, and I want to congratulate Fred Carter for understanding the local economy and what sort of degrees we need for that workforce. But are we doing adequately in making sure McLeod has the pool of potential employees that are qualified and trained as needed?
So I think we are. As Charity mentioned, we've had to pivot. So post-COVID, we have invested in what we call our workforce development program that we're going to talk about today. That wasn't a program we had prior to COVID. We believe a 4-year degree is still valuable, but there are different avenues now for even getting that 4-year degree. So we have lots of students, and we try to put those opportunities out there where you can get a training certificate or a 2-year degree from a technical school, come to work, and still get your 4-year degree while you're working because there are options for online education. Mm-hmm. Now a 4-year degree doesn't necessarily mean I leave home and, go somewhere 4 hours away and I live on campus and I don't work for 4 years. Now you can continue to work, continue to make money, sometimes take care of your family and still achieve that 4-year degree. But you can also work and make money and have a career without the 4-year degree.
Charity, when do we begin, enticing, when do we begin engaging young people about a potential career in healthcare?
So like elementary, middle school, we want them to know that we want them to come to our workforce. McLeod prides itself on being local people taking care of local people. So we want those local students to know that they have a place here in their own community. And so they start to get their CTE, their curriculums in 8th grade. And so we want to go out and talk to them at these career fairs and say, McLeod has a job for you. And we always ask the question, when you think of McLeod Health, what do you think about? And they're like, doctors and nurses. And then we squash the myth. That's our job, is to squash the myth. You want to be a nurse or doctor? Perfect. But if you want to be something else, tell me what that something else is, and I can prove to you that we as McLeod Health have that job for you. That opportunity is open to you.
Octavia, is it fair to say, I mean, if you're a business person, very often in the most difficult times, you learn a lot about yourself. Is it fair to say that we were probably not as prepared in workforce development as we needed to be pre-COVID?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, it shook everybody to their core, but literally healthcare had to reimagine itself.
We were somewhat spoiled. McLeod is, as you mentioned, a fantastic place to work. And we've never had to recruit employees to come work at McLeod because they wanted to come work at McLeod. Mm-hmm. But again, what COVID showed us is employees became very mobile in ways that they had not been before. Obviously, COVID was a very scary time. So in some cases, people wanted to move back closer to family because they, needed to cherish that time, or they needed a caregiver or to take care of somebody. So it was easy for them to travel and leave McLeod. Now, interestingly, because we're such a fantastic place to work, many of those people have come back. But no, we were not as prepared because we never had to truly recruit people to come, work for McLeod. And what we realized is when we look at our workforce at McLeod, while we love people from everywhere, it's the people like Charity who were born and raised here, who know McLeod, who know Florence, maybe they have family here, are the ones who tend to stay with us for a longer, period of time, really committed to this region and this area because they know it. And so that's why our focus has been our students who are here locally, starting, as Charity said, at elementary and middle school, and letting them know that McLeod operates, like Charity said, much like a city. Mm-hmm. So anything that a city has, whether it's plumbers, heating and air, engineers, childcare workers, teachers, we have that at McLeod.
Charity, I've got a daughter at the University of South Carolina. She's a junior. She's about to finish her 3rd year in the Darnell Moore School of Business, and I had one demand of her, and I hope there are no Shakespeare fans out there. I don't offend any Shakespeare fans. I said, I'm not sending you to get a degree in Shakespearean theater. I mean, I don't know who listens to someone read poetry but your efforts or attempts are to find young people and teach them the understanding of the education leads to a livelihood.
That's right. So we are always talking about career progression and wage progression.
Explain that, career progression and wage progression.
So as you go through the apprenticeship, as you go through the on-the-job training, as you go through a technical school and 4-year degree, you expect your career to progress, right? And that's what we can offer you. We can upskill you, reskill you at McLeod Health. You can start here. I'm a prime example of that. So I started at McLeod Health as a CNA, and now I'm a nurse by trade.
So that's a nurse, and she started as a certified nursing assistant.
Okay.
We use acronyms in healthcare that a lot of people don't understand.
You're the American dream, girl. I mean, you are. In all honesty, I mean that sincerely.
Well, thank you. But as a student, as a nursing student, I was a CNA, certified nursing assistant, and then I became a nurse extern after my first semester of nursing school. Became that RN on the floor, and I have worked in every single position and through management up to a director of nursing. And then I came over to HR, and now I get to do workforce development. So I show the students, you can do that. You may not want to be a certified nursing assistant. You may want to be somebody that drives a CDO, have a CDO license, and want to drive a big rig. We do that. I motivate them and say, you can do that for McLeod. You can do whatever you want. Tell me what you want, and let me show you the pathway to get there.
Octavia, my wife says I was born 100 years too late. And maybe I was, but I got to believe that in some of these employment opportunities that require outreach to younger people, there has to be an understanding of meeting them where they are. generational differences? I'm not saying one's better than another. I'm sure my dad didn't like a flock of seagulls as much as I did, back in the late 70s and early 80s. But how important is it for an employer like McLeod to understand what sorts of what generations are thinking about job opportunities?
It's probably the most important thing on our minds right now. We just invested in a day-long training on generations in the workforce. So our leaders understand what each generation is looking for in a work environment, because it is very different. And it's not that, like you said, one is not better than the other. It's just different. And we have to learn how to embrace this. We always joke about, especially the nurses, because back in the day, was, you're talking about 20 years ago, nurses traditionally, they work 12-hour shifts, they work holidays, they work nights, they work weekends. That patients still need care around the clock, but nurses have to understand that this younger generation of employees in the post-COVID world have a different set of values, and they are hard workers, but maybe they don't want to work on a holiday. And so we had to teach our seasoned nurses. You can't always say, well, I did it. You have to do it. That's not how we have to approach it. We have to talk to them about why and look at ways that we can be flexible. Maybe you don't have to work 12 hours on Christmas, but can we find somebody that we can split a shift with you where maybe you work 6 and you work 6, so you can have some time away. So just looking at our policies, because our policies were probably written for a different generation at a different time.
Because the hospital never closes.
And so, but we have had to adapt to what different generations want in a work environment. And that has required us to look at our policies and see how we can change and be flexible. And that's been a positive for us.
So either of you ladies, pre-COVID, we're rolling along. Things are as we expect them to be. COVID hits. It shocks the entire system to its core. You begin thinking about things that needed to be addressed, things that you weren't quite as prepared as you thought you needed to be. Those are a bunch of rambling words. I mean, those are conversations. I mean, you ladies have material in front of you. Out of that comes an actual program or a plan. Let's go there if you don't mind. So pre-COVID, we kind of admitted we may have been a bit lacking, as everybody did. I mean, who knows a pandemic's coming? Mm-hmm. But all of a sudden, we've got to really get after workforce development. The printed material both of you have, what does it accentuate? What does it emphasize? What does it highlight?
All of the programs and the initiatives that we have done as a system to make sure we meet the demands of our workforce in the future. So
you have implemented or in the process of implementing the majority of these transitions. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, and some real life examples are prior to COVID, we didn't really hire 16 and 17-year-olds to work in the hospital. There wasn't any reason why. It just was typically, you think, 18 years old. And we found that we were missing out on a whole workforce of 16 and 17-year-olds who could work at McDonald's or other, fast food responsible jobs. Why can't we train them to come work at the hospital? And so we opened up some training programs. My daughter was one of them. She went through the Med-Surg Tech program. We partnered with Florence Tech. Mm-hmm. And had high school students trained through that program. And then they were able to come work at the hospital as nursing assistants right beside nurses. That allowed us to eliminate our vacancy rate and our need for nursing assistants.
So how important, Charity, was it to have partners? And you mentioned tech. I'm talking about K through 12 and, the school district and you've got tech and you got Francis Marion. And I would imagine to some degree USC and Clemson, whether they're direct local partners or not, you got to go find good talent.
You have to go find good talent, and building their partnerships is key. That's where you start. You have to talk with those leaders of those organizations or those institutions and say, this is what we're trying to do. You have the students, we have the opportunities. Let's see what we can do, how we can work together, what programs we can provide for you, how can we help you all grow your students and meet your needs, but also meet our needs as well.
And just to piggyback on that, on my paper in front of me, I have some of the partnerships that we have, and just to mention a few. So school districts: Florence 1, 2, 3, and 5, Darlington County School District, Marion County School District, Dillon, Chesterfield, and Sumter School District, Harbor Freight, Francis Marion, the Continuum, FP DuBose. I mean, we have a number of partners. And interestingly, you mentioned about the colleges. One of the things that we weren't really tapped into before are the number of students from Florence who are going to four-year colleges across South Carolina and even into North Carolina. So we visit places like Lander and Clemson and USC to tell those students, if you're home for the summer, come work at McLeod.
Yes, come work for us.
How important is retention? How much of a priority is that? I mean, in other words, I ran a business and I hire a good employee. Well, if he's a good employee for me, he'll make a good employee for somebody else. So retention, what was a big deal? How do we, what sort of programs do we develop to make sure when somebody becomes a good employee of McLeod, they stay a good employee of McLeod?
So that's about reward and recognition. Retention is, again, has got to be one of our top four programs, because if nobody left, we wouldn't need to hire anybody.
But I'll tell you, I want to interrupt you for a second. I've read a lot where we're talking about generations. The younger generation are more mobile than we are. It would have taken an act of Congress to get me to move out of Florence County. Young people don't think twice about relocating or moving to a land far, far away. It's kind of exciting to them. It was a bit. Is that something you guys have learned in your analysis, that younger people are more likely to move around and be more mobile in the workplace?
They are. However, if you can provide a good work environment for them where they enjoy what they do.
Have friends.
They have friends. Friends is a big thing, having friends at work, a leader who supports them. And it's not about money. We used to think it was money. They don't leave for more money. They leave if they don't enjoy their work their work environment, and if they don't have friends at work.
Acceptance is huge for this generation.
How important is the facility? I mean, we do a radiothon there every year, the Children's Miracle Network. It's kind of a happy place. I mean, hospitals aren't happy because people are there because they aren't in the best of health. But you've got this food court. You've got this. I mean, you got a lot of glass. I mean, is that important? I mean, do people really care about working near some of those amenities, and does McLeod make that a priority?
Yeah, because if you take them away,
you'll hear all about it.
Got a problem.
Why did you close the Starbucks an hour early last night?
Yeah, it is very important because those are things that connect them to their workplace. If you don't provide, I mean, people find a lot of comfort in Starbucks. Obviously, young people have made Starbucks lots and lots of money. So to have that in your workplace where you can just, when you need to take a break, you can just go down, get you a cup of coffee and feel a connection to the place where you are. I mean, that's why we have it there, to make that a more inviting, benefit for our employees.
So how do you get the adults and students interested in a job at McLeod?
How do we get them interested?
I mean, we're talking about outreach. We're talking about this program you guys are putting together, what you've learned post-COVID. But at the end of the day, you've got to go meet somebody and convince them that, hey, this is a job that I think you'll be excited about. You'll make a good living. You'll have security in the workplace.
We tell them all of those things. We hype up.
Where do you tell them this? How do you find them? I mean, do you go to campuses? Do you go to high schools? I mean, do you outreach it?
We do community events, we do campus events, we do phone calls, we send emails, we do call blasts, we do campaigns, we do anything you can think of for outreach. We send postcards in the mail, you name it, we do it. My team is small with workforce. We have about 7 individuals on our team, but we're small but mighty, and they are constantly on the road going from here, there, and yonder to yonder. That's a southern thing. Here, there, and yonder.
Go yonder works.
Here, there, and yonder, trying to showcase what a great employer McLeod Health is. And when we bring them on site, we offer tours. And so my team will do a tour on a shadow day, and they will walk around the campus with you and introduce you to the people. And once you walk through those halls and you meet some of the leaders there, you're like, oh my goodness, everybody knows everybody. That's one of our favorite things to do, is to walk them through the halls, because I've been there for a long time. Even though I'm at Enterprise's campus, when I return onto MRMC's campus, it takes me 30 minutes to get where I'm going. So I always try to make sure I leave for our meeting extremely early, because they're going to like, where are you? What are you doing? Let's have a conversation about what you have going on. And whenever we post things about what workforce development is doing on social media with our marketing folks, we get so many shares, so many likes, so many kudos about students that we brought forward. We have instructors that are like, we want to come there. We want to see what you guys are doing. We've had invitations to presentations for other organizations within the state to say, you need to tell them what McLeod Health is doing in their community and how they're growing their students and how you're upskilling your current workers. So,
Octavia, I'm sorry, you were going to say something.
I was just going to add that we have the benefit and the luxury, I believe, and the privilege and the honor of living in a state that people want to come to.
Yeah.
When you look at any of the national data, South Carolina is always 1, 2, or 3 where people are moving to. And then we have the benefit of living in a part of the state that is the cost of living in Florence is still lower than a lot of the other metro areas. We're conveniently located where people can still get to Charleston or Columbia or Charlotte. And then we have 2 hospitals at the coast. And so we have to find those people sometimes, but a lot of times they are finding us. And so we just have to make sure that we are, hiring people who are a good fit, who can live our mission, vision, values. Mm-hmm. And so we do have the benefit of that.
As you develop this plan, or you develop this plan, I mean, it's in writing now. You thought through it. You obviously had a lot of communication with other organizations, but I got to believe it's fluid. I mean, it's never static. It never ends. I mean, I hope and pray we never have another pandemic, but something else will happen. I mean, something else will come along. We're talking about generational differences and the shelf life of an employee. Are we always trying to make it better? Are we always communicating with? We talked about tech and Francis Marion and K through 12. I mean, when I talk to the physicians at McLeod, I'm astounded by the technology of 2 years ago is outdated. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's this new technology. I got to believe that training and the latest, greatest training is a big part of this. Fair enough?
Yeah, absolutely. And we try to, obviously stay on top of the training for our workforce. I do want to mention in terms of, long-term plan, because workforce is not a short-term gain. Mm-hmm. This is our long-term strategy for building the pipeline of our workforce. We're partnered with Florence School District 1, who just got a $10 million grant to renovate the Pointer School to have a school of healthcare innovation. And so we're partnering with them because, again, that's the long-term game for how we start to build our workforce. And so that's going to be a fantastic training program for students so they're able to enter the workforce either while they're in school or immediately after they graduate.
The plan we're talking about, it still comes down to the employer. I mean, you guys have put a lot of effort in that, I got to believe. What you've learned from COVID, how you can be better moving forward. I want to ask both of you this as we kind of conclude. What is it about McLeod that makes you most proud to be an employee, that you could look a young person in the eyes and say, you'll never regret coming to work here?
It's the people for me. It's the people. It's local people taking care of local people. I mentioned that at the beginning. I feel like the values that we have had for 115 plus years have never changed. We still believe in those same values. We still believe in professionalism. We still believe in taking care of people and taking care of our community. We still believe in integrity and being honest and forthcoming. And we come together and we are absolutely, like Donna says, we're better together. Mm-hmm. So there's no small you, big me kind of mentality. I sit at the table with Octavia and we hash it out and we bring whoever has any skin in the game to the table, and we take people's opinions and we make them come into fruition. You can come to the table and talk to our president, CEO. She asks questions of our staff. She really listens to them. and implements what's heard. I mean, we just had a big win. I'll let Octavia talk about that.
Well, let me answer
Okay.
Ken's question first. So for me, Donna Isgett, our CEO, likes to say, McLeod is not perfect, but we are special. Mm-hmm. And we really are special because many of us work with other organizations across the state in different capacities. And everybody's always interested in what do we have going on at McLeod. And I think what makes our culture special is our people are connected to our mission, vision, and our values. And our mission is to improve the health and well-being of people in this community. And certainly personally, McLeod has done that for me. And so to be able to have a connection to a mission that I believe in, I don't know how you could work somewhere and not be connected to a greater good. Because if you're not going to stay there. And that's what makes us special.
Okay, Charity teased us now. I don't know if you sidetracked us or sidestepped it, but she said there was a win.
Yeah, we did have a big win, and it was all over social media. Yes. So I'm sure you saw it. And this gets back to the question about how are you agile and changing to keep up with what your generations and your workforce needs and wants are. Donna does what we call, Donna Isgett, our president and CEO, does president's huddles, where she goes out and she listens to the employees. What do you want? What can we do different? We can't do everything you want us to do, but give me some ideas and we'll take it back and see if we can work on it. So we changed our dress code policy.
Right. That's huge.
And the number one thing that hit social media that excited our employees about the change in our dress code is that we just added more scrub colors that they could wear.
So simple.
We added pink and gray and
they
black.
became not just employees, but shareholders.
But shareholders.
They had input.
Absolutely.
They voiced their opinion. We vetted it. We changed it. We communicated it. And they what they said is they listened to us. They listen to
That's
us.
important.
And they want to be important. Yes, employees want to be heard.
So Polly's Island muscle shirts, is that included in the dress code, or that's still an exclusion? Can we get a waiver?
We still want to maintain a healthcare professional environment, but something as simple as adding 3 colors, pink, gray, and black. That doesn't cost us any money. That doesn't change our culture. That doesn't change our mission, vision, and values. It just gives our employees greater choices and empowerment.
And leadership listens to what they have to say. Yeah. And that's fundamentally important in any enterprise, whether it's healthcare or where I come from, building truck beds. Do both of you realize the significance of McLeod? I mean, what it means aside of someone will go to that emergency room tonight that would rather not be there. But it doesn't stop there. It's the reciprocating effect of employment and commerce and the economy. I mean, do you understand? I know you take it seriously, and I know you understand it. But I want you to explain in your words, not mine, what you feel the responsibility is to be the biggest employer in the county.
It's a huge responsibility. And I certainly recognize it every day. And I think this is part of the value and the specialness of really being in a fairly small community. I talked to somebody today who works for a hospital system that has 150,000 employees in 190 hospitals across the country. I don't know how you could build a culture like that. But every time I go to Target or Harris Teeter or just walk down the street, I see somebody with a McLeod badge on, or on the weekends, I'll get a call. I've got a family member in the hospital. Can you help me understand what's going on? Or I get an email, my child applied at the hospital. Can you help, figure out what areas she can work in? Those are the kind of messages that we get daily. And so it has reinforced the importance of McLeod to our region, the impact that we're having on the health and well-being. We feel that and we hear that every day.
And Charity, you embrace that.
I do, because it's even to the point where I don't have to see the person in Harris Teeter or Target But just driving on the highway and seeing the till sticker in the window.
Yeah.
And you're just like, you don't know who they are, but you're like, that's a McLeod person. And they're just like, hi. They're like, it's a sense of pride. I love my McLeod sticker. I love my McLeod badge. I want to, I bleed teal. And I think that everybody that walks through those halls for any number of years bleeds teal.
Okay, last question, and then I'll let you ladies out of here. We talked a lot about workforce development, what you've learned post-COVID, how you want to be better at providing the services that the community has come to depend upon. If you're talking to a young person today, if that young person stops you in Target or in Walmart or wherever you may be and says, I'm thinking about a career in healthcare, what's the elevator speech? Why should that young person who isn't real sure about, nobody at that age really knows what they want to do, why should they consider a job at McLeod in their best interest?
So first, what I found, especially with this younger generation, so Gen Zs, and we heard the new generation after the Gen Zs, I think is Gen Alpha. So they now have their name.
Okay.
They want to be connected to a mission. They want to do something valuable. And you see it in some of the organizations they support. Even if they're protesting something, they want to be part of a greater purpose. And so to me, there is no greater purpose than doing work that saves and changes people's lives. So that's the first thing. If you go into healthcare, you will be connected to a greater purpose. Will you be able to make a living? Yes, because they want that too. They want to be able to take care of their families. They want to be able to travel. So you have the ability to make a good salary. While we want them to be here in our community and at McLeod, another selling point is if you go into healthcare, you can work anywhere in the country, in the world. Now, hopefully they will come back, to our community, but that's the other selling point. A healthcare background will help you, to go anywhere it is you want to go.
Charity?
So my favorites are my grocery line talks with students. They're working at Harris Teeter. They're working at the KJs, and I'll give you an example of one in particular. A young lady, she was a student at Hannah Pamplico, and she was talking to the customer ahead of me, and she was just like, "Yeah, I go to Hannah Pamplico, and I'm doing this and I'm listening." I'm listening to see what I'm listening. And so when I get up there and I said, I heard that you go to Hannah Pamplico. I said, they have a great program for CNA. I'm in that program. I said, I work at McLeod. And she said, you do? And I said, I do. And I said, what do you want to do? And she was like, well, I'm just going to start with CNA. And I said, that's what I did. And so here we are. She's like scanning my groceries and we're talking about my path. And she's like, I'm going to be you when I grow up. I said, well, you can. And I hand her my business card and I said, call me anytime. It's them having the freedom and the connecting with them and saying, this is an adult person who is way older than me that wants to talk to me and values me as a person. That's important. Very
well said. Very well explained. I'll ask one thing of you ladies. Don't go in the podcast business because you'd be a lot better at it. Than I. So believable, so sincere, so authentic, and I think McLeod's honored or proud to have you as representatives. And once again, I'll say this to our audience: we're very fortunate to have McLeod as a partner of this podcast. We don't help heal the sick. We don't, cut a night out of a hospital stay, but we do try our best to accentuate the positives of this community. And McLeod is absolutely one of the positives that we should all celebrate. And they're always trying to be better. Thanks to both of you.
Thank you.